Welcome back to the Confidad Podcast. My name's Dan Tinquist, your host. So glad you chose to join us today. We'll begin this podcast like we do every single episode with our fatherhood mindset. So say it out loud with me. I'm the only one who can fulfill the father role I have, so I choose to do it well. I get to show up well for my kids. Imperfection is reality. Ownership is a choice. Today is brand new. So is tomorrow. I am wholly loved. So I will love wholly. In today's equipping section, I'm going to talk to you about a personal struggle. So maybe it's not so much equipping as much as just letting you into my story. But if this is part of your story and you relate, then hopefully there's some takeaways. There's some equipping that can happen. I was diagnosed with ADHD in September at the age of 38. And as soon as that diagnosis came, a lot of other things in my life started to make a lot more sense. But it also had me reckoning with my memories of the past. At this point, I had 4 kids who were around the ages of 12, 10, 8, and 5. And I know that in most situations, I struggle to be fully present, whether it's in my work, with my kids, in my marriage, wherever it is. It's very hard for me to only have one stream of thought or one task at hand. And so there's some superpowers behind that, but it doesn't come without a struggle. It doesn't come without the hurt in relationships. I think the biggest struggle with my journey in ADHD and parenting is not doing what I said I was going to do. Because the way that an ADHD brain is wired is it can be fully embracing it's the thought that counts mentality, right? Someone asks me, can I do something? I say yes, fully intending to do so. But in the spin of all the things going on in my brain, I say yes, but I don't mark it down, or I don't remember it about 20 seconds later, right? And that causes a lot of hurt. That causes a lot of lack of trust. That causes a lot of tension in relationship, because when you don't do what you say you're going to do, it breaks down and erodes the connection, that bridge between us. Now, there's been ways that I've been able to hack this now that I know it's true about me. And it hasn't been like every single time I say I'm going to do it, I don't follow through. But now that I'm aware of this diagnosis, now that I'm aware that I'm neurodivergent or neurospicy, as Abner from Johnny Swim calls it, the reality is that I have to operate in a little bit different system in order to follow through, in order to do what I said I was going to do. And there's this other piece of it that is really eye-opening, really helpful. I think this is probably true for people who are neurotypical. The higher the stress level, the higher the cortisol, the higher all the stress hormones in our bodies are, the lower the ability to connect is in relationship, right? High stress level, low connection. And that often leads to increased conflict. So when I don't do what I say I'm going to do, or I struggle to follow through, that really increases the conflict, decreases the connection, and actually can have this cycle where it starts to increase the stress. So what have I figured out to do? Well, I stopped committing to things as immediately as I used to. I don't say right away, yep, for sure, I'll do that. I slow down, I take a moment, and I either say, let me get back to you, or I say yes, and then I write it down, or I say into my phone, hey, remind me in a little bit, I need to do this, or I set a timer. The most frequent one is setting a timer. If I set a timer, it allows my brain to forget for a few minutes the thing that I'm going to do, finish up the task at hand, and then when that timer goes off, I've committed to doing the thing I said I was going to do, and guess what? The stress level goes down because I don't have to try and hold it in space with everything else. The connection goes up because the stress level has decreased. I have integrity. I've done what I said I was going to do. And then the conflict goes down. Better than saying the conflict is high or low as a result of those two things, maybe here's a better way to say it. The ability to handle conflict is high or low, right? High stress, low connection. The ability to handle conflict, low. It's terrible. The conflict goes up, but the ability is down, right? Low stress, high connection. The ability to handle conflict is high because you're connected, you're safe, you're feeling good about what's going on. So there's a little glimpse into the story of what it looks like to be a dad with ADHD, to be an entrepreneur with ADHD. The struggle is real. It's not an excuse. I'm not a victim, but it's part of my story. It's part of how I'm wired. And so maybe that's part of your story. Maybe you have ADHD and it's hard sometimes. Maybe one of your kids does. And it's hard for you to not just freak out when you say, "Hey, can you clean your room?" And you're kind and patient. And they're like, "Yep." And on the way to their room, they find 16 other things to do and they still haven't cleaned their room 30 minutes later. It's not their fault. It's ADHD. So can you empower them while creating systems and processes that trigger good effects within a neurodivergent brain to help them come through on the things that they said they were going to do? After all, it's our job to own our own stuff. It's our job to grow and ask for help when we need it and to get the things together that we need to become the dad our kids need. It's also our job to help our kids grow, to help our kids get the things that they need and the systems and processes they need to grow into confident, healthy, interdependent adults. So if ADHD is a part of your story, part of your family story, I hear you. I'm with you. There's no two cases the same. There's no two experiences that are the same. But I'd love to hear what your story is, if that's your story. You got a kid with ADHD, or you have it, or any other kind of neurodivergence. It adds in some interesting pieces into parenting, doesn't it? Doesn't mean that it's hopeless. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It simply means we get to be more creative. We get to have a little bit more flexibility and a little more structure in how we go about it. So I hope today you feel a little empowered if that's your story, or maybe you know someone with ADHD and you've always kind of wondered, like, what's different about them? How does this work for them? And there you go. Unpacking, pulling back the curtain a little bit, being real. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.